Welcome to Jazz Area, where we discuss everything Bay and beyond. Come walk with me, 'cause I'ma make you be better. Bless gold will shine, making my life a high. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to Jazz Area, where we discuss everything Bay and beyond. I have a really special guest with me today, Mr. Van Portlock. So thank you so much for being here.
No problem.
Van is very special to me. He was a mentor. He's been a mentor basically all of my life. And he's a mentor to so many other young adults. Now everyone is growing up and doing different things. He's been in San Francisco helping with the youth and adults for over 25 years. I wanted to ask you, well, we know you're from San Francisco, but also what inspired you to start working with young adults in the community?
Well, growing up like in the 70s, I seen a lot of good things happen in the community. But coming to age, like in the late 80s, I seen a shift and change, especially in the communities, to whereas your grandmother was like the matriarch of the community, and that changed, and it was a devastation of drugs and other influence, and I know we don't have enough time to speak on that, but nevertheless, it was some big influence that came in the community and really disrupt the rhythm of the community. And I started noticing as as a kid, I started noticing other kids that didn't have what I have or going through certain struggles, and it was like a chain of events. So I just thought that, looking into that, coming up in the tail end of the Panthers as well, I said, we got to really put my foot to the ground, come up with the grandmother I came up with. I had to just look out and start doing what I had to do. And, a lot of kids didn't have a place to stay. So, and I'm talking about kids in the community, so they would sleep over. I would sneak them in my house, make sure they had a place to stay. I probably got in trouble for it, but moms and pops, they definitely understood. So from there on, I think I just started just really like raising the level up a lot and, just keeping these kids out of trouble.
I love that. I love that. Well, you are a great father and a great husband. What do you think is being projected into society as far as fathers and husbands right now? We see a lot going on just in music and television and everything. What do you think is happening right now? Maybe some things that can change.
Well, definitely, there's a lot going on. I think we have a lot of work to do. And I'm speaking to everybody out there. We have a lot of work to do. Music influence, what's going on TV, media, even the diet that we have. I mean, when I started seeing kids eating top ramen from out the package, I have my daughter here today. She's 21 years old. She ain't never ate a bag of top ramen. Right. I'm saying that's good or bad, but what I am saying, though, we really got to watch out for these kids' diet. And there's been studies to show that the salt content that are in the food that we eat, everything is devastating right now. As a mother and a father, and I've got to raise these kids right. We have to, because there's so much out there right now. Again, education, food, the value of what's in the household right now. We have a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
definitely have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, we have a lot of work to do. I was listening to someone talking about that, and they were talking about not just the diets that we have for our kids, but also, the mother and father being in the home. It's almost non-existent right now. And the single mother is sort of elevated outside of the realm of family. So you have these women, and I've seen younger women talking about how they don't need a man, they just need a bag. And it's like, wow, how did we get to this space? We need to dial back. It's not that you need a man for anything or a woman vice versa. It could be any situation that you're in, but just kind of like, why are we not talking about how important it is for a unit, whether it's family, whether it's the community, like you said, the matriarch, the grandmother stepping in, and used to be able to, kids will be running outside and playing, and one parent will come out and say, hey, get off of this grass, or just whatever. But then now if you say something to someone's child, people want to fight, or it becomes aggressive. So I think it's really important for us to get back to that space of community, having a family, no matter how it looks, but just making sure that we know we got to help raise our kids together
right.
and push for that. I'll ask you this too, as a pillar in the community for over 25 years, what do you think we can do to make some of these changes? Like, there was a situation in San Francisco where the kids were skateboarding down
I
the
see that.
hill. They
Right.
had, and they arrested tons of children. I mean, these are, some of them were adults too, but
Right.
they were basically, the law enforcement got involved,
Right. Seen
and,
that.
and just arresting these kids. And we're like, okay, I saw a few of them. They seemed to be a little unruly, but how did we get to a space to where we're just calling law enforcement on our kids?
Right. Well, just to dial back, there's a couple of things that, and actually, Jasmine, you mentioned it yourself. It's formulaic. You talk about community and family. It's formula, man. We really have to incorporate that more into that when we see these kids grow up. I seen the thing you speak of in San Francisco too. There was a film, say about 15 years ago, called. It was called 9/11 Fahrenheit or something like that, Roger Moore, whatever. But he was talking about, he talked to this dude who's in rock and roll, Manson, I think his name is, and he asked him, like, what do we do with the kids? The same thing you said to me. And one of my things is just listen. You have to just listen to these kids. And I know it goes boring, and you're like, I'm older, so I see life expected different from where they see it at. But again, just to get that off their chest, just to listen. I think you get more results when you hear a child, and I'm going to call them child because they're children. You could be, it's like 25 is when you're considered an adult. So I hear a child
Right.
speak. I hear what's going on. I hear what's missing in their family. And again, it goes back to the formulaic, what you just said. Family and community definitely
Yeah.
needs to be in there. And also listening to what these kids have to say. And there's so much adversity out there that's going on with them right now that, I mean, we we see a lot of homeless stuff going on. And, I'm from San Francisco, so I'll speak on that. And I can speak on Oakland as well, too. There's a lot of homeless going on right now. We have so many spectrums that's going on in our communities right now. And yet we have time to be police officer and beat up on these kids. I mean, that's a no-go. And I think that's the wrong message. It's like we can't even fix our own backyard, but yet here we are whooping on these kids. And I can tell you, I work with unruly kids. I know the spectrums. I've been dealing with mental health all my life, so I get it. These kids are lashing out because of what they don't have. These kids are lashing out because of what they see. These kids are lashing out, because of the music and stuff like that. They're lashing out at a lot of stuff. It may not be violent. It may be other things, and it's also turning off too. I had this theory that if you're deaf and can't hear, you have you have a powerful tool. You're like an X-Men because you could tune out on the world. And some kids have like a learning disability where they could just tune out on the world like that. And I envy that because there's so much going on right now that these kids aren't getting. And again, like I said, listening, community, family, we need to incorporate that. We have a lot, and I'm going to keep saying this, we have a lot of work to do. And as an adult and as a father and as someone of the community and as an African-American male, I feel it's my responsibility. I'm not looking to get paid for this. I've been doing this all my life, and I have worked in different systems, mental health, school board, all that. I come from both sides of the spectrum. Like, I was a troubled youth, and in so many words, but then I worked on the other spectrum now where I'm probation officer, social work, and everything like that.
Yeah.
We have to make that spear shorter to incorporate what we need to do.
Yeah.
These kids definitely need our help. And sometimes if you just listen, and I'm talking to everybody out there, just listen to these kids, man. It ain't gonna take much time, money, and if so, buy them like a little Happy Meal, something to drink or something like that. Just listen to what they gotta say, so they can get that off their chest.
Yeah. I've been learning that over a period of time. I have children myself, so listening is so important. My son, he had a stuttering issue when he was younger. He just took a long time to formulate his sentences, and so I had to sit everybody down and say, hey, look, he is struggling to speak. And so if you're not willing to listen to him, you need to go somewhere else. You can't, we don't want to make him feel uncomfortable or make him feel like his message or whatever he wants to say is not valued.
Right.
We have to listen to him if you choose to. If not, this is the road that I need to be on,
Right.
because I want him to feel valued. And so I love that you
Absolutely.
said that when you listen to them, they feel valued.
They
That's really
definitely do.
important.
Right, right.
Yeah. Well, with that, we're going to take a break really quick and we'll be back. How do you feel right now as far as mental health is concerned in the Black community? Do you think it's being addressed more?
I think it's being addressed, not more. If you do your history, there's a book called the DSM-4, and it's to talk about psychology and diagnosis. And I can tell you that it was back in the '60s that a lot of these diagnoses came from the African American community, a lot of Chicago area, and actually in California as well too, to where they were claiming our childs are this, and that. And that's not a good look. I also would say that historically, African Americans, we don't look for a therapist. We look more in the community. We look more for our pastor. I mean, if you're having an issue with marriage, we don't go to marriage counseling. We go to the pastor. So there's people in the community that we would go to besides
Right.
I'm not saying it's not the right channels, but there's other channels. That's what I'm speaking
Right.
of. There's definitely
Right.
other channels, man. I mean, frustration, like you said, me and Jasmine, just a little bit. We grew, we had 7 aunties and 1 uncle. So we had a lot of women in our lives. And I'm the older cousin, so I seen a lot of that. And I also seen a lot of mental health. Well, I didn't know it at the time because I'm thinking it's just how regular it should be. But as I got older, I seen that it was, we had much more to do, especially with the males in our family. And for the females raising these males, it was tough. But again, that was the norm. So, yes, to answer your question, we definitely need more awareness in our communities. We have a lot of kids doing things that we might not understand. You might have things that your own child is doing that you might understand. I would definitely recommend see a psychologist. I would also recommend when your child's in school, they only can recommend that your child has this for ADHD and stuff like that, but they can never assess or give pills. So I highly recommend to the parents, if you're a young parent, old parent, and even the parents call it the sandwich generation, to whereas that's where the grandparents take care of the child.
Right.
And we see a lot of that in our community too. So again, I think we need more awareness.
Yeah.
I think there should be a guideline on the book of how we should treat our kids that we see may not be normal, because they say that a kid may not be focused and have AHAD, whatever. And it's like, that's not necessarily true. Kids are kids.
Yeah.
As we get older, we know kids are just kids. You can't give this kid a diagnosis, especially if it's just mostly kids of color as well, too.
Yes. And I feel like there are people that are not African American that try to diagnose children that are. And a lot of the backgrounds that they have don't really match where the other person has been,
True.
as far as education and all of that. So they have these different, ethnicities, and then you have a different cultural background too. And so then you're trying to diagnose someone that just has a whole different experience than you. And it makes it rough on the kids. My youngest son, what's interesting about him is that he's very active, but he's also really intelligent. And so during I would pick him up from school, he would say, "Oh, I was, having a good time with my students, and everything was my students, my students." And I'm like, "Those aren't your students. Those are your classmates."
Right.
And he's like, "But those are my students." And I'm like, wait a minute. Like you said, going back to listening to him, he wasn't being mean. He wasn't like, trying to
Facetious,
just
yeah.
be older than everyone, or just whatever you may want to call it. If back in my day when I was younger, if I were to do something or say something that may have been not received, it's like stay in a child's place versus like, is this child basically telling me something that I can look forward to in the future? Maybe he wants to be a teacher. Maybe
Right.
he was inspired by that, and we just automatically want to just sit them down and just,
Right.
have them just be quiet or just stay in a child's place. It's like, what is that place?
Right,
You
right.
know what I mean? That's not.
But you got better results because he was
Yes.
like, he explained to you and you guys communicated
Yeah.
and you listened to what he
Yeah.
said.
And so I wanted to ask you another question too. You were
Sure.
talking about how we grew up. You know, there was a lot of women around, and there
Yeah.
were a lot of the mental health issues that really weren't addressed,
Right.
or we didn't really know
Right.
were mental health issues.
I speak of my grandmother a lot because she definitely was one to help me. I mean, I did have my mom. My dad wasn't in the house, but him and my grandmother lived a couple of blocks away,
Right.
so it was always there. I had seven. I was fortunate to have, I mean, six aunties, seven aunties, including my dad's auntie, but whatever. Always had somewhere to go. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So I was never lacking resources or nothing like that as far as my mind development. So I wouldn't be arrested development like a lot of people my age, unfortunately, are still stuck in the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. It was a little bit different for me.
Yeah.
And not everybody had that, And even when we was growing up, there was rules, unseen rules that we had to abide by too. And looking back on that, I missed that. But again, you talk about community, and when you talk to people that's my age, like 40 and older, they always say like how they miss, like there was someone in the neighborhood to watch out for them. There was someone in the neighborhood to tell your parents that what you was doing. You could go to other people's houses, you sharing food, clothes with everyone within your community. I didn't grow up in the best community, but I felt so safe there that I didn't even know there was better out there because we all grew up on the same platform and level. So as a kid, I felt safe. That was the best time of my life as a kid. You couldn't tell me nothing about outside of community because of the protection, growing up with all my cousins. It was a lot of us. I just look back and I try to explain that to my daughter because, as you
Right.
well know, we don't have that camaraderie no more because, of course, housing, inflation, everybody can't live around us. I mean,
Right.
all this stuff added in the community to separate your family more and more apart. And then when you do that, it also breaks the bond of like more of what you should be doing. Who can I reach out to? My son is acting like this. I got to get him to go see big cousin or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't depend on the big homie in the neighborhoods to watch out for my son. I need
Right.
family there, So
Yeah.
with the churches leaving the community, with family disappearing, I mean, price of houses going somewhere up. Again, I have to say, we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
We have a
we
lot
do.
of work to do, you guys.
And I do want to add, we're talking about some of the aunts that we grew up with and things and mental health issues. It's not to slight anyone. It's not to make anyone feel bad about anything. We're just merely discussing mental health issues that were never diagnosed. And in result, you have reaction versus action, or reaction versus, really like being in that emotionally stable place,
Right.
and being able to make a conscious effort to make good decisions. Like there was just, if you have someone that has mental health issues that hasn't been diagnosed, how are they going to teach anybody anything? How are they going to show you how to be
Right.
emotionally intelligent or anything like that? So I think for those women, it was just more of a state of just being ignorant. And ignorant is not bad. It's just not knowing, not being educated, and then wanting to stay in that space. And I think that, I mean, or you don't know that you're there, you stay stuck there.
Because your safety net has disappeared. It's
Yeah.
dissipated. You
Yeah.
had the safety net. We had all of that there
Yeah.
within our community. But life goes on, and for whatever reason, you have to separate. And when you do that, that safety net's gone.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
Safety net's definitely gone.
Yeah. So I'm glad that we are doing things different. I will say too, when I was younger, Mr. Portlock would come and pick me up from my dad's house, and I would go to the Bayview Opera House in San Francisco, and I would have to put on plays. I would have to sing. I would have to dance. I would have to act. I mean, and this was every day. He's like, all right, during the summer, like, okay, come on. It just was no question of, oh, I gotta do this or that. It was like I knew I was gone. My dad, him and my father had already talked about it, so I was just up and running and going to these programs. And like you said, earlier, having all these different places to go, having family come get you and pick you up, it you that safety net is highly important. And then I'm delving into wonderful things and learning more about myself, doing stage and having to sing and, having all these other people around me, knowing how to have conversations with people and, and spending time with other people, I think is really great. So I think it's wonderful that, and I'm thankful that you decided to take a look at your time as an adolescent and say, I'm going to make sure that I'm doing things for, the youth, because it makes a difference. I mean, look where we are now.
Right.
Just I love doing what I do, and it's because I had somebody like you in my life. So I just want to thank you for that.
And just to add to Jasmine, I can't do nothing but respect her and love her, because she always was one of those kids that there was times where she would put on that other person's shoes. And what I mean by that, she understood and know where they came from. And I highly recommend that all of us that's in this room or that are watching this to please put yourself in that other person's shoes. Point in case, there was I used to work at Edgewood Children's Services. And there was this one kid who, he would be scared to take his showers. And for the life of me, cool kid, always wanted to hang around me. They couldn't wait till I got there, whatever. But I didn't understand, like, why is this kid not taking a shower, you know? So we're driving one day, and, I put on the music that he liked to listen to, and then he just went into how like, he had got hurt in the showers. But because I took that time to listen to that kid, because I put, I had to wear his shoes at that point in time. I understood what he was talking about. This kid was getting in trouble. He was getting beat up by other kids because he wouldn't take a shower. The thing is, I would say to all of us out there, like, just please put yourself in that person's shoes. You may not like that person. You may not, you think it's just a paycheck. It's not important in your life right now with this kid, and you're not paid to go as far as just watch this kid for the day and go home and deal with your own issues. I understand that. But at the same time, though, too, I think by doing stuff like that, we could stop the suicide rate. I think by doing stuff like that, we can stop the gangs that's coming about. I think by doing stuff like that, you can stop the drugs that these kids are taking because no one is listening to them. Again, it goes back to listening, and all it takes is a little bit. My motto has always been, again, Jasmine can testify, my wife, the daughter here, they can testify. I don't get paid to do what I do. They got a higher calling, and I'm good with that. You know what I mean? And again, I could, it's passe to say, save one kid's life, you can save a lot. Yeah, that's all true and all, but still, you really got to look at that. And when you change somebody's life like that, it feels just so good knowing, not for you to take all the accolades, but just to know that, okay, this kid got a chance now. And from there, let's get this kid a bank account. Let's talk to this kid about jobs. Let's talk to this kid about school. We got to put all this into this kids. I mean, I can't speak enough on that. And I told Jazz I'll go off on a riff on this, but I won't. But I will say, though, we got a lot of work to do. Please just put yourself in these kids' situation. These kids may be bad. You probably don't want to deal with them, and I get all of that. But sometimes if you just listen to what these kids have to say, it makes a big difference. My daughter, when she was younger, I used to pick her and her friends up, but I'd always be in earshot to what the conversation was about. I wouldn't put my daughter, blast or nothing like that, but like you and your son, you talked about it. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the big difference. And you ain't got to be a parent. You could be an uncle, a cousin, a friend, a big home. You could be any of that. These kids don't care about that. They just care about who ears is going into. They can follow up with that as well. So.
The follow-up.
Yes.
Like, how are you doing?
Exactly.
And most people think, I used to think that too at one point, you become recluse a little bit and you think no one cares, but it's like, that's not true. There are people that will listen and make sure you understand that they're there for you and that they love you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. We had a great conversation one time. This was a few years ago. We were talking about emotional intelligence and arrested development. That is huge.
Yes.
And what I'm doing is working with my kids with that now. Because, we know there could be an adult that's really like a teenager.
Right.
And so when you're dealing with a teenager, how, because you've been dealing with young adults for a long time.
Right.
How do you help them navigate that? Going from a teenager to an adulthood, like you're going from not having responsibilities and kind of leaning on everyone to, being escorted into this,
Right.
you got to pay a phone bill. If you don't pay any bill, you got to do that. How would you recommend someone do that?
Well, that's a big transition, as we know, from childhood to young adulthood. Big transition. Most of the kids I dealt with didn't have a safety net or didn't have a family. So I had to go deeper into my bag with that. I will say, with everything that's going on out in the community that these kids could easily get into, I focus more on the stuff that it's easy to join a gang. It's harder to get a bank account. You know what I'm saying? It's easy to do
Right.
drugs. It's harder to get to college.
Right.
So my thing would be, I would take some of the kids, let's say, like at 15 and 16, I'm already talking to my kids about college.
Right.
And it ain't always about college neither. So I'm talking to these kids about trades as well. And I really
Right.
wish they bring trades back into school. I think that was the most horrible thing when they took the trades out of the schools. Everything was just set on college, 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 but not everybody's for college.
Right.
So some of the kids I work with.
Right.
But with that, I would still at early age put all this information into them. I would take some of the kids to the college. I went to Skyline College. So I would take some of the kids to Skyline College and show them what I did early, show them about financial aid. I would give, I remember, I used to do this a while, but I remember like, I would give each kid, I was responsible for like 6 boys, I remember this, and I would give them $100 each. Mm-hmm. And by doing this, what I did was, you couldn't touch it, it's in a bank account. And back then you used to have books. It wasn't over the internet like it was as it is now. And I would keep the books. And I said, look, so you saved your allowance and da-da-da, and they would see those numbers grow.
Right.
And it wasn't a lot, again, but it was something.
Right.
And just see them appreciate that money growing.
Yeah.
They couldn't wait to get a job or something to put money into the account, not to take the money out and spend on shit. They actually couldn't wait to see their money grow.
Right.
That's a transition.
Yes.
Taking these kids to college, that's a transition. Taking these kids to other places, construction sites or whatever, that's a transition. So my thing was I would do it early.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wait till a kid turned 18. I think that's the worst thing you could do is wait till this child. And the mind develops a little different, especially in males and females. Females' mind, they mature faster.
Right. Right.
So with them, it had to be, I worked with a lot of young ladies as well, too. The importance of hygiene, the importance of how these dudes out here, they hunters, you know what I mean? So
Right.
they only want one thing. I remember Muhammad Ali said, protect your treasure. God put you on this earth to protect your treasure, you know what I mean? So protect that at all costs. So, I would say it was more easier with the females than the males. And again, because females mature faster.
Right.
But even with them, I use the same system with the bank account. And to this day, and you can testify as well too, I have a lot of kids that grown up well, and I'm so proud of all of them though.
Right.
I just wish, again, listen, communicate, please. You see these kids, and then you talk a transition. It's so important. These kids want cars fast. They want this fast. They want this fast. It's
Yes.
baby steps, and you gotta let them know it's levels to this shit. It's not, you ain't gonna just get that. Ain't no
Right.
way. And you're in a position to where you in this group home facility, you got all this stuff on top of you. So I'm gonna be here for you, but we're gonna go in baby steps, and we're gonna go my way. Because
Right.
I've been there before. I know what it's like. So
Right.
that's what I would do.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And also just making sure, just like you said, listen to them, because they're going to tell you
They will.
exactly what's
Eventually.
going on.
Right,
And
right.
what needs to be done.
Right.
Well, I just want to thank you so much for sharing with me today. I really appreciate that. And I'm very thankful that I get to experience you. Like, we have our conversations over the phone and stuff,
Sure.
and we hang out, and I see you a lot.
Yes, you do.
But I'm just so blessed for other people to be able to see you too, and to, hear what you have to say, and how much love you have for young adults and them being inspired to
Sure.
grow, and just their growth period. I think that's so important. We need more people out here doing that. Or, we see what's happening with our youth just around the
Yes.
world. It's a little wild.
Throughout the diaspora, you ain't getting
Yeah.
it.
And so we need to dial it back, and these are the conversations that we need to have.
And to that, I just like to say, Jasmine, people always say, you lucky to have a cousin like Van and stuff like that. And I'm lucky to have cousins like this because what I do and what I implement into them, they go out and do the same things to their kids, to their community, and I love it. You know what I mean? And not just me, we have other cousins as well. Everyone, you know what I'm saying? It's just, again, you really got to plant good stuff into these kids to see your garden grow. You want your garden to be beautiful, plant that seed into these kids,
Yeah. I remember a pastor told me one time, you can't go to an ATM and try to withdraw and you never made a deposit. And these children are similar to ATMs. You trying to go and get something,
Right.
and they don't have anything to give. But it's like you have to put something in there.
Yes.
You have to give them information. You have to give them love, peace, and joy.
Right.
All of that stuff, fruit of the spirit. You got to give them those things in order for them to have anything to put out.
And something to see outside the community.
Yeah.
A long drive, an hour drive. Going to Reno with some of these kids is like, these kids, I swear, when I took a bunch out there to Reno, I mean, that was the biggest thing to them. I had to think like, okay, these kids ain't never been nowhere.
Right.
And it's so devastating. But when they're outside, when they see snow and everything, that just blew their mind. And again, as adults, we have to show them that.
Yeah.
And our life may not be perfect, or we have a lot of stuff going on in our life. I get all that. I really do. But at the same time, we do have 5 minutes.
Yes.
Ain't no one out there can say they don't got 5 minutes to
Right.
listen to a child.
Right.
You better listen
Yeah.
to what these kids are saying, y'all.
Yeah.
For real. It's a lot going on. A hug goes a long way. One of my theories is hug a thug. Just hug them. Give them a hug. Be a different, different outcome. For real.
That's right. Well, thank you everyone so much for tuning in to Jazz Area. We really appreciate that, and we'll see you soon.
Big ups to my cousin Jasmine. Appreciate that.
Come walk with me, 'cause I'm a